giant, perfect circles carved into the deserts of Jordan, a mysterious 60,000-ton stone mound sitting under a lake in Israel, an 800-ton rock in Japan shaped like a spaceship, and more. These are unexplained ancient monuments left by ancient civilizations. If you go up into the high plains of western Bolivia, right near the Sajama volcano, the ground is covered in a giant web of perfectly straight lines. They cover over 8,000 square miles, making it easily one of the largest archaeological sites on the planet. Unlike the Nazca lines in Peru that show pictures of monkeys and spiders, these are just straight lines. They're basically paths anywhere from 3 to 10 feet wide, and they cut right through hills and brush. Some of these lines run for 12 miles straight without bending a single time. The local people made them thousands of years ago by scraping away the dark surface rocks and soil to show the lighter dirt underneath. Doing that over miles of rugged, uneven mountains without any modern mapping tools, that's a crazy amount of work. Archaeologists think people walked these lines as holy paths to visit different shrines and burial towers scattered around the desert, but nobody knows for sure why they needed to build them on such a massive scale like this. Right behind the famous Temple of Seti I in Abydos, Egypt, there's a giant pit in the ground. Inside that pit is a structure called the Osirion. It looks completely out of place compared to the regular Egyptian temples around it. Most temples in Egypt have thin walls covered in colorful carvings and hieroglyphs. The Osirion doesn't have any of that. It's made of giant, plain granite pillars that don't have any decorations at all. Some of these blocks weigh up to 100 tons though. The builders intentionally put the structure over a natural underground spring, so the center of it sits like an island surrounded by deep water. Because the groundwater keeps rising, the floor has been flooded for thousands of years. Historians say it was built around 1300 BCE as a tomb for the god Osiris, but because it sits so much lower than the main temple and uses a totally different building style, a lot of researchers think it's actually a remnant of a much older building that the later Egyptians just dug up and built around. Next up, we have a stone slab covered in etchings, which sits in a grassy park right next to a housing development in Scotland. Underneath the grass is a massive stone slab, about 42 feet long and 26 feet wide. It's called the Cochno Stone. It's covered in some of the weirdest prehistoric carvings in Europe. Neolithic people carved these shapes about 5,000 years ago. The whole surface is just packed with over 100 symbols, mostly circles inside other circles with long lines cutting through them. Some of the shapes even look like footprints, but with 4 toes. Archaeologists aren't exactly sure what this thing is. Some people think it's an ancient star map for tracking constellations. Others think it's just religious art. It caused a lot of arguments, and there were such big crowds coming here to check it out that the government actually buried the whole stone in dirt back in 1965 to keep people from ruining it. Yeah, because hooligans were coming around messing with it. It dug it up for a quick 3D scan in 2016, but right now it's still sitting completely hidden underground again. Over in West Java, Indonesia, there's a big hill covered in shattered volcanic stone columns. For a long time, everyone just assumed it was a natural mountain with a few old stone terraces built on top. But geologists started testing the hill, and now there's a debate over whether the entire mountain is actually a giant buried pyramid. Scientists used ground-penetrating radar and drilled holes deep into the hill. And they found out the inside isn't just natural dirt and rock. The hill is actually built in layers. The top terraces are only a few thousand years old, but underneath that, the scans show big hidden chambers and stacked volcanic rocks going down 90 feet. They even pulled up old organic material from the bottom layers that dated back over 10,000 years, which would make it way older than the pyramids in Egypt. And researchers on site say the stones are packed together with an ancient type of mortar. Could mean some ancient civilization was building massive structures back when most of our ancestors were just hunting and gathering. That's what Indonesian geologist Danny Hilman Natuwijaya thinks. He believes the site was built as this giant pyramid 9,000 to 20,000 years ago. Deep in the bamboo forests of Asuka, Japan, there's a big piece of carved granite sitting on a hill. It's called the Masuda no Iwafune, which means the rock ship of Masuda. The thing is huge. It's about 36 feet long, 26 feet wide, and 15 feet high. Weighs around 800 tons. And it's shaped really weird, as you can see. The top of the rock was flattened almost completely straight, and someone cut 2 perfectly square holes right into the middle. There's a bit of a stone ridge separating the 2 holes, and then around the bottom sides of the rock, there's a grid pattern of crisscross grooves chiseled into the granite. Archaeologists don't really know who carved this, when they did it, or why. Some think it was an old astronomical tool because the center ridge lines up with a specific mountain peak. Others think it was supposed to be the base of some giant tomb that someone just gave up on building, but there are 0 written records about it, so it's really a mystery. Over in eastern India, there's a mountain range with some pretty incredible stonework. They're called the Barabar Caves. They were cut directly into giant boulders over 2,000 years ago. The outside, they just look like small doors cut into big rocks, but when you walk inside, the walls and ceilings are almost polished. They're super smooth. Granite is incredibly hard, but the builders managed to flatten and buff the walls to the point where they can reflect light like a mirror. Historians know the technique as Morian polish, but they don't really know what kind of hand tools can make granite that flat and smooth inside a dark cave like this. On top of that, the shape of the rooms creates really cool acoustics. Because the walls are perfectly smooth and curved, sound gets trapped. If you say a single word, the sound waves just bounce around in a loop. Check this out. If you fly a plane over the deserts of Jordan, which I'm sure most of you do in your spare time, you can see a bunch of massive, almost perfectly stone rings stamped into the landscape. Archaeologists call them the Big Circles. There are about 12 of them scattered across Jordan, with one more sitting just north in Syria. And they're basically identical in how they were put together. These circles are huge, ranging anywhere from 700 to over 1,400 feet across. But if you were to walk up to one on the ground, you probably wouldn't even notice it. They're just low walls built out of stones piled a few feet high. Crazy part is that whoever built them managed to make them almost perfectly round without being able to see their own work from the air. A British pilot first spotted them from the sky back in 1920, but it wasn't until recently that researchers started really mapping them. Based on old Roman roads that cut right through some of the rings, we know they're at least 2,000 years old, but they could easily be much older. Back in 2003, scientists were using sonar to map the bottom of the Sea of Galilee in Israel when they came across something pretty bizarre. Sitting on the lakebed was a giant cone-shaped mound made of thousands of boulders. It stands nearly 32 feet tall and spans about 230 feet wide. Researchers estimate the whole pile weighs around 60,000 tons, heavier than most modern warships. When divers swam down to check it out, they confirmed it was definitely man-made. The rocks are natural boulders up to 3 feet long. There are no tool marks on them, but they're piled together very intentionally. It wasn't built underwater, though. They would have built it on dry land thousands of years ago, then it was submerged later on when the water levels rose. But, I mean, who went through all the trouble of moving 60,000 tons of heavy volcanic rock to this specific spot? In the desert of southern Peru, right near Lake Titicaca, you'll find a massive rock wall that's been carved into a giant mysterious shape. It's called Aramu Muru, or the Gate of the Gods. It's basically a huge 23-foot square cut. It's basically a huge 23-foot square cut directly into a solid cliff face. Right in the bottom center of this giant square is a smaller niche that looks kind of like a door, standing about 6.5 feet tall. But if you walk up to it, you realize it doesn't open. It just stops at solid rock. There are no tunnels, there's no hidden chambers, no buildings behind it, so why is it there? Well, mainstream archaeologists think the site was created by the Tiwanaku civilization, or maybe an even older pre-Inca culture, but because there are no organic remains left behind here, nobody can date this thing perfectly. There's some very interesting native folklore behind it, though. The Aymara people have called it the Devil's Doorway for centuries. Their ancient legends say this wasn't a dead-end wall at all, but a portal used by powerful shamans to travel to different realms. Even today, the site attracts people who swear they can feel this strange vibration or hear a low buzzing sound when they press their forehead against the center of the stone door. Finally, we're going to a wheat field in a small town in Germany. It doesn't sound all that interesting, but it actually is. Back in 1991, a pilot flying overhead noticed this giant circular shadow in the crops. An archaeologist dug up the area. They realized they were looking at the oldest solar observatory on the planet. It's called the Goseck Circle. It was built roughly 7,000 years ago. The whole monument is about 220 feet wide. Originally, it was a big ditch wrapped around two giant circular fences made of thousands of heavy wooden posts. The builders left 3 specific gaps, or gates, in these fences, one facing north, one facing southeast, and one facing southwest. The alignment here is what's really interesting. If you stand right in the dead center of the circle during the winter solstice, the sun rises perfectly through the southeast gate and sets directly behind the southwest gate. It is a perfect calendar built by simple Stone Age farmers, way before anyone thought humans knew enough about math or the sky to track the sun with this kind of precision. There's also a mystery as to what else went on in this giant wooden ring. When workers excavated the center, they didn't just find old pots, farming tools, they found a bunch of animal skulls and human bones that looked like they'd been scraped clean before they were buried. Since these people didn't leave behind any writing, we have no idea who they were, but it seems like this was a possible ritual site of some kind. That has been the video. I will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next one.